Yes, we'll do introductions first, and then the format for this evening will be there are 2 questions for each person, and we'll go through all of question 1 all the way down, and then we'll go through all of question 2, and then if you have other questions that you would like to ask, we could do that. Does that sound okay? Okay, so let's begin with, wow, this is like one of the Republican debates. No.
Should we call you Mrs. Trump?
Oh, no, thank you. Rich, would you begin, please, and then we'll just go down.
Sure. My name's Rich Pickering. I am a grade 3 teacher at Margaret Chase Smith School. I'm also the grade level coordinator for the 3rd grade as well.
Thank you.
My name is Barbara Perry. I teach social studies to 7th and 8th grade students at the junior high.
My name is Ryan Bissell, and I'm a 4th grade teacher, and I'm also the 4th grade level coordinator, and I work at Carl J. Lamb.
My name is Trish Lee. I'm the principal at Lafayette School, and I'm also the guidance counselor.
My name is Laurie Flannery. I teach 3rd grade at Emerson School.
My name's Marianne Sylvain, assistant principal of Sanford High School.
Melissa Dubovic, math teacher at the high school.
My name is Adam Belfay. I teach 6th grade at Willard.
If they pass the mic, I think it might help to be heard. The first question is, what student-centered proficiency-based practices are going on in your classroom or in your building? And if you could limit that, if you could give us a, I know, Rich, it's going to be hard, but if you could try to limit it to about 2 minutes, that'd be great.
2 minutes, okay. Talking about just in our building, we have done, amongst various classrooms, almost, I would say, 100%, have created a shared vision. And that would be a shared vision within the classroom. In 3rd grade specifically, we have created a shared vision amongst the 4 3rd grades in ours. The reason we did that is because one of the things that we're doing this year are sharing some of the students in that we have them grouped, at least for reading, based on their performances. And so some of the kids that are in my classroom during Daily 5 Time, which is a reading management program, may go into one of my colleagues' classroom across the hall, and we wanted to make sure that when one of our students travels into a different classroom, that we all have the same expectations as far as behavior and as far as the expectations of being in a different classroom with a different teacher. We did this involving the community. On our first open house day, we asked the kids and the parents who came, what should a classroom look like and what should a classroom feel like? And just using sticky notes, and we created a large board full of comments from everybody, from students, teachers, and parents. We then put those together into a vision of what classrooms should look like, feel like, and sound like, published those, and then again handed that back out to the parents so that they knew what our classrooms, what would be happening in all of the classrooms. Another thing that I think Margaret J. Smith School has done well with is having a code of cooperation, in that all the students know exactly their types of behaviors in the hallway and in the bathroom and on the playground and in the classrooms. In my classroom, we use that code of conduct in a way that the kids actually decide whether or not they've reached the standards for those behaviors each day, and we've been graphing those so that the kids can see sort of their improvement, or maybe if they've had a bad week even.
Rich.
Time, okay. 2 more things. I think the most important part about this idea of having introducing some of these new things is that all of the teachers in our building do have some common some common language surrounding what we're doing, including SOPs and codes of cooperation and things like that.
Okay. At the junior high, the first days of school have always been set aside so that students learn what is expected of them. This year, the entire school used some of the RISC tools to create the classroom culture. And that is, it's similar to what Rich had said. You involve the kids in coming up with a shared vision, code of cooperation, and then they're invested. They're much more likely to buy in. So we did at the beginning of the school year. Shortly after that, we had the kids create personal learning plans, taught them how to set goals. We used the SMART goals used in business for many, many years. Kids created iWeb folders where they came up with goals for all of their subjects, also included personal goals, social and emotional goals, and those were the goals that they presented on student-led conference night. They put pictures of themselves and they were very much invested. In fact, one of the teachers had suggested that if the families were there, that they become part of the personal learning plans. And so the kids took pictures of their parents and turned them into rock stars or goofy people with the laptop. And that was a great success. The other thing is there's several teachers that are creating student-centered, proficiency-based units at the junior high. And they include real-life situations. They also consider kids' interests. And the moment you include something the kids are interested in, they want to learn more. It's their curiosity kicks in. I see a lot of excitement when kids are trying to solve real-life problems. Real-life problems, you mean we really are going to look at these? Yeah, they're practicing these skills. To learn about simple machines, I've seen a science teacher have kids either take things apart. One of them had a bicycle there. Or now they're either building things. They came for screwdrivers. And they're actually building and disassembling these things. For language arts, one teacher allowed a group who was not real crazy about an assignment they had to do. She customized it. They write a newspaper for our learning community. It's quite a task. It's a lot more difficult than the other assignment they had to choose, but they were up for it. And you're seeing the kids who are invested in these type of projects are excited. They're excited. They can't wait to start working, which is a little bit different than the traditional classroom.
Thanks, Barb.
At Carl J. Lamb, all the classrooms have created their shared vision and code of conduct. We have core value assemblies monthly, and we celebrate that core value. And teachers and classrooms are creating videos and presentations to share at these assemblies. So the core values are alive and well in our classroom as a part of our code of conduct, and students and teachers are checking in on them. Students are assessing themselves and how they're doing according to the core values by checking in with the thumb report after different lessons. How did you do with fairness? Give yourself a thumb report, up, down, sideways, and really discussing how they're doing behavior-wise and how the classroom's running that way. In my classroom, I have up our shared vision of code of conduct, and students can flag different parts of our code of conduct in which we feel we want to work on more. So we can have discussions based upon that, and we're constantly checking and adjusting what's going on in our classroom according to that. As far as academics, I teach 2 classes of math, so I'm really going in with the standards in math a lot. I have charts in my classroom on the wall with the standards that we're working on in math, and students are shading in boxes as they meet the standard. So they're keeping track of their learning and monitoring their progress. They also have a sheet that they keep in their math folder in which they can keep track of their assessments. So each time they have a piece of evidence, they write down the date and they write down their score. So they know what they need to work on, and they know what they've already learned and where they're going. So they're really taking ownership of their learning. Let's see. And I think, the parking lot too is important. That goes back to some of our risk tools. We have parking lots in our classrooms, and students are constantly putting up questions about content in the curriculum, or just questions about the way the classroom's running. They also point out things that are really going well, and things that they'd like to see happen in the classroom, so their voice is being heard. And each day we're able to look at those Post-its and address their questions. I think that's all.
That's great. Thank you.
I wanted to say that everybody is at beginning stages. I mean, there's different levels for all of these that everybody's talking about. At Lafayette School, all my teachers have been trained in all 3 levels. The classrooms are observing a student-centered, standards-based school. They're going to another school that's doing it in Monmouth tomorrow and Wednesday. I got all teachers to go in and have lunch with the principal and the other teachers to talk about how they've done it, how it works. We're piloting Educate, and we had a staff meeting with Rich DiLorenzo, and he came into the classroom and he talked to several students that came and talked to me. We got to ask tons of questions. It was We are creating and unpacking shared visions, code of cooperation, standard operational procedures, and learning standards for understanding and ownership, voice and choice. Examples of standards and how they look. We're trying to get as many examples out as we can so that children understand what exactly they're asking for and what their expectations are. There's flow charts and the learning standards up, and so it gives them direction and independence. There's a use of rubrics again, for understanding expectations. Everybody has gone through goal setting. Everybody. Students helping their peers reach a lot of the goals that are being set. There's lots of opportunities for students to share their ideas with the use of all the risk tools that they were talking about, the parking lots. There's 5 ways. There's all different ways that you progress monitoring with the individual and class. Students working at their own pace during math. All classes have reading blocks. We did the same thing. Talking about where we tripled our specials so that we had reading blocks all the same, grades 1 through 3, so that the children could be mixed according to their levels. And we've already put them in levels, and then we've rearranged them actually twice already because of the movement that's happening, because they're at their own level working. They have planning and collaboration times for this made it possible that we put them together so that the first grade teachers, second grade teachers could collaborate, and the third grade teacher with the second grade. We also have independent reading projects that the children can work on. They do it themselves. They figure out how they're going to show how they want to present it.
Thank you.
We're at various levels of training at Emerson. Sherry Fullerton teaches 3rd grade. There's 2 of us. We've received 3 levels of training, and then I think we're down to 2 and 1, and a couple of teachers who are working on a master's have not had any training yet, so we're at various levels of comfort with jumping into this. So Sherry and I, after the 3 trainings, just couldn't wait to get started. So we took the advice of Rich and those that trained us, knowing that we were going to make a mistake, but we just wanted to start and jump in somewhere. It's a work in progress. There's been a lot of plan, do, check, and adjust. And so what we initially did, the 2 of us, is we took our 2 3rd grade classes and we said, let's just do this in math. And we divided the students by their NWEA scores, and Sherry took one group and I took the other. And we've done this so many ways, but finally, what's working right now is, like Ryan, we've taken the 4 standards they were, the hits that Kim Schroeder had developed, and we looked at everything in trimester 1 and said, this is what the kids need to know in math, because we still are using the everyday math. I'm kind of working with it a little bit with the standards. And we put those up on the wall on huge pieces of graph paper, put the kids' numbers up there. And so they see what they have to do when they come in. We trade every morning. And I'll give a little mini lesson in my classroom. The kids will look at the chart, see what they need to do. Those kids, there's a procedure, and it's posted on the wall that we've developed, and they'll work on that math hit, go back, work on their workbook. If they need help, they'll go up to the chart, write H on there. If they're done, there's a little yellow sticky, and they write the page number, the box number that's corrected. Then I put an X on the chart, and they go in and color it. And I'll tell you later, for the second question, it's just changed math unbelievably. So, and we want to move in the direction for reading. We want to do what you guys are doing and what MCS did. We want to learn from mistakes that have been made and from the successes that you've both had. But for our collaboration time on Mondays, we've been reading Inevitable, and we've been talking about we want to do this in reading. And a couple of us, because math had worked so well, I mean, you just can't believe the changes in the students. I said, oh, I think I'll try this for spelling, too. There's just something about that chart up there. And so that's working really well, too. So I'll talk more about that later.
Hi. At the high school, we've had a number of teachers who have read several books, Delivering on the Promise, Inevitable, and How to Grade for Learning. Many teachers have gone to the RISC training in the summertime, and we've got quite a few who are quite excited about implementing the student-centered proficiency-based model in their classroom. We have pockets of teachers doing various levels, and what I'm seeing when I go into classrooms and when I'm talking to teachers, I'm seeing students in some of the classrooms who know what their learning targets are. There's some voice and choice in the assignments that students do to show that they've learned learning targets. Some students are working at their own pace. Some of the tools of RISC, parking lots and code of conducts are in some of the walls in the classrooms. Khan Academy is being used in a few of the math classrooms from time to time. Some teachers are using Teacher Web so that their students can get on their website and learn through different links that the teachers has for them, get their worksheets off their Teacher Web, work at their own pace. They know what their targets are. One teacher has said to me that she feels like it's a model where the teacher gets off the stage. The old sage on the stage model. She's getting off the stage. At the high school, we also have some ELOs that are going on, service learning. Recently, Mr. Erickson's, one of Mr. Erickson's math classes had invited representatives from Toms of Maine to come in to talk to the students on how they are using math at Toms of Maine. And one day, those students went to Toms of Maine to see the company. It was a great experience for the students.
In my classroom, one of the main goals for me was to make my curriculum transparent for the students, so they know exactly where they've been and where we're headed and what we have to get accomplished. I had a conversation with some of my juniors and seniors about how much we've actually done in the past 3 months, and we don't have to get through too much more, and it looks manageable for them. The other thing with my students is trying to give them a choice of how to show me that they understand something. It doesn't always have to, and as a math teacher, paper, pencil tests is what I've been used to throughout all of my education, but giving them an opportunity to do projects to show application for those particular standards. And using online resources as much as possible and giving them choices of sitting with me and going over examples I've done in the past, but also giving them opportunities to look online to find other ways of learning.
Sitting here, there's a lot that I could say that would kind of rehash. I think they put me on the end to keep me quiet, but that could just be my theory.
Impossible.
That I could say that would kind of rehash what a lot of other people have said, but I think I want to talk more about what this does social emotionally for the child. So often in education, we forget to ask the consumer, and the consumer is the student. So when you go to the student and say, how is this working? Is this working? What do we need to do to make it better? And if you're teaching any amount of risk training tools or any student-based performance education, you're asking the kids on a very regular basis, is this working? A couple of weeks ago, we were having issues in the hallway. I went to the kids and I said, what's going on? We talked about what the problems were, we talked about some solutions, and then we drafted a rubric. The kids now rate themselves every single day on their hallway behavior, and they are in agreement with me that it has improved things. Unfortunately, we don't ask the kids enough, or we haven't. I think that's changing. The key is to go to them and say, is this working? And if not, what do I do to change it? When you do that, you're sending a clear message. Not only am I going to ask you, I'm then going to make adjustments based on what you're telling me, which is essentially the very relationship the business has with their consumers. I think by asking them, you're getting engagement right from the beginning. And I'm looking around our building, seeing a lot more rubrics, a lot more discussions, a lot more interactive problem solving where you're asking the kids, how do we do this and what could we do better? And not only asking, but then taking those thoughts into account.
Thank you, Adam. That was great. You tied it together. You were talking about the impact that it is having on students socially and emotionally. How about the impact it's having on students academically?
I think it's hard to answer that in a broad way yet, because it's still coming online. I can give you an example, though, from my own room in the area of science, which I've just gone online with this year, playing with some things. We're working through a standard right now on energy. I've got 7 of my 25 students who have done that standard. They're done. We did an extension on energy. We got to that point, and they were just energied out. They wanted something different. So I gave them a number of things to choose from. They made some selections. I drafted some activities with them. They were all working on individual topics. Some of them have said to me, but when I'm done that topic, can I go do that one? That's something that would have been unheard of before this type of thing came along. When they were done, they wanted to be done. Now they're saying, I'm done, can I go learn that, which also interests me. So the engagement is coming really full circle, and kids are starting to buy in. It's hard because, as I said, they haven't always had the same levels of exposure to the model and to the approach. That'll come later. But we are starting to see, and I can hold those kids who are up and done the standard and say, do you want to get to those enrichment topics? Here's how you do it. You document that you understand the standard, and then I will be able to let you have those same experiences. So I'm seeing engagement improve tremendously as we get further along into this.
Thank you.
I don't know how to follow up that. One thing for my students that I found is I made the curriculum transparent to them, but I also gave them a calendar and said, let's plan out the next month. I said, this is where I think you should be, and this is where... And just plan around what I'm saying. It may take a little bit longer, or you may need more time with certain things. I had a few students today say that I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to last week. And we had the conversation of what we could do, and did you plan too much for that day? Were you working? So they're starting to get there. And having some of my sophomores and juniors kind of get to that point, that made me happy about what I was doing in class and what I can get them to.
Okay, comments from some of the teachers that I spoke with. They said that the slow workers were able to show the real quality of their work because they were able to work at their own pace. It wasn't, okay, it's Friday, you're done, pass in whatever you have completed. Teachers said the classroom seemed to be less stressful for the students, less behavior issues for the students. One teacher said, gee, I didn't have any failures quarter one at all. Everybody met the standard, and she was very pleased with that. Overall, from all the teachers that I did speak to, they all said that students were achieving.
There's something about posting those standards on the wall and taking your little colored pencil to go over that just keeps the kids motivated. And last year was my first year in the classroom. I taught music for 20 years before that. And I had this math student, I'm on television, aren't I? I don't know if I should say this in public, but it was my first year, and he'd be done in 5 minutes. I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? And with those targets posted, those students now can move ahead. And I had several students that went into trimester 2, so the achievement definitely was there. Not only did they accomplish all of the targets for trimester 1, but 2 or 3, I would say 3 weeks early, we started moving into trimester 2 standards and math hits. That was really exciting. And the other piece was, it was right before conferences, so it was really exciting to share this with parents. Students in the past, you know, they'd look at the clock and say, is math almost over? And I had kids come up, chase me around the room and say, Miss Laney, and that's not the procedure, so we had to talk about that. Procedure is you put your yellow sticky on and you put it over there. Chase me around the room. Can you check this? Can you check this? Did I get it? Did I get it? Because they want to go color that. And then in spelling, once I decided to implement spelling the same way, it's the same thing, and it would be just kids that I never would, they're just motivated. So it's really, so the achievement is there, the motivation is there, and it's just been really exciting to see.
I did the same thing. These are teacher comments from, one of them was, all students are learning, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I think that just speaks for itself right there because of the levels, that everybody gets to work at their own level, their own pace. Students have less stress. Learning is more meaningful. The curriculum makes sense to them when it is at their level. Learning is not being slowed down or pushed ahead when they are working at their own pace. Students like not having to wait to sit through a lesson when they can work on something they actually need. In reading, students are able to work at instructional levels, and I feel this is helping them meet their individual needs to grow at a faster rate. Students have many visuals to compare their work to see what is missing. It's more independence. Independent reading projects, the students choose how they present their learning. They're accountable for their work. They must show how they document, how they completed the project. It motivates the children.
I think a very important idea about this model is that there are no deadlines. And at the end of each trimester, or at the end of each math unit, for example, the students who are partially proficient in certain standards keep working on those standards until they get them. So that has really motivated kids, again, to color in the boxes in the chart. It's changed my instruction a lot because I do more small group instruction, and the groups are flexible, they change, and the students who need more get more. It's motivated them a great deal. I've had students ask to be assessed. I've had students want to bring home extra homework, stay in at lunch with me and practice while they eat, come in at recess, stay after school. They're excited when I hand them flashcards. For example, I handed some out today, and the child said, oh, I've been practicing this in my student reference book, thank you. Like, what? I just haven't heard those type of comments before. Students have asked to help other students on standards that they haven't met before. They're very proud to color in their boxes, and I even had a parent comment because I sent home these profiles to parents too, and it's made it a lot clearer to them about what their child knows and what their child still is working on. And she said that her child had a math phobia before, and this is the first year that she finally feels like she doesn't have that math phobia anymore, and she enjoys math and is excited to come to math class daily. So it's a real success. Thank you.
Couple of big things. One is that kids can no longer sit back and be passive learners. The teacher is not in the role where I'm going to deliver the information you need, you take it, you learn it, and either repeat it back. They have to construct knowledge, and you see that a lot in project-based or problem-based learning. You don't teach them all the things they need to know up front. You present the problem, and then they start to deconstruct this. What kind of questions do I need to ask? They really draw on research skills. Where do we go? I mean, they work with other students as well, and it also gives me the time to go from group to group, and we work out some of the issues. These type of projects require much higher level thinking skills, much higher level. And before they can create great projects. They have to do some deep learning, and they realize that. I mean, before they would say, do I have to read all of this first? You'd say, well, you have to build some of your knowledge first. Well, when you give them the problem, they're motivated to do the learning. And they need some help learning the skills with how do we come up with questions, where do we go to get information, how can we make sure we're getting legitimate information, and these are the skills they're learning. They also learn that I'm not the only person that can help them, knowing that kids learn at different paces. Some of the kids have shown their success or proficiency with learning targets, and we have a flow chart. If Mrs. Perry's busy, what's the next thing you do? And they will very often see who has met that learning target, and they'll go over and ask for help. A lot of collaboration. Students can no longer turn in mediocre work and say, I'll take the grade. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. They have to show proficiency. And in the beginning, you see some kids are, they're going to do the same thing they're used to. And then you sit down with them and you say, I could work on this with you, give you feedback along the way, and you could become proficient in about the same amount of time you spent on this the first time. And probably the most rewarding thing that I'm seeing is that kids that traditionally struggled in the classroom, whether it was learning disabilities or they just didn't buy in or didn't come to school, they are achieving success. They're excited, they are proud, and some success breeds more success, and they want to keep going. It also allows teachers to spend more one-on-one time with students that need it. Whenever there was some reading involved, I'd always say, well, I'm going to read out loud at this table. Anybody who wants to join me can join me. And after a while, you saw the few kids that might struggle with that. But when they saw other kids working independently, becoming more self-reliant, self-directed, they started working towards the same goals. And they are doing wonderfully, wonderfully.
I think the impact on achievement is yet to be really measured. I think when you have teachers who are doing more collaboration now, looking at data, really looking at data, and then basing their instruction on that data, and when you have kids who, you've heard some of the stories, students, who are much more motivated, then I don't think you can help but see achievement growth. Now, we are measured by certain ways. Kneecaps are one of them. We measure achievement, at least now, we're switching from a developmental reading assessment into the benchmark assessment in reading. That's a little different. So for me, it's very difficult to have any sort of comparative data, and it's still very early. We're still very early in our vision. We're still very early in for some, especially in training, and for really initiated student-centered performance-based practices. And I want to reiterate that this is, a lot of teachers are just starting. I'm just starting. We all are just starting. So we're seeing some, there's excitement. This is a hand-picked panel here. We've sort of drank the Kool-Aid. We're excited about it, and we're seeing a lot of things that are happening in the classroom that are very positive. But to say that all of a sudden that this year our kneecap data is going to come back and it's going to, knock your socks off, I don't know if that's going to be true or not. This is a beginning process. But like I said, when you have teachers who are buying into the ideas, when you have students who are buying into the ideas, when they're independent, when they have this voice and choice that they feel like they have in the classroom, and when you see them excited about trying to reach higher targets, then I'm sure we're going to see some increased achievement as we move forward.
Thank you. Thank you all. When Marguerite asked, how come it feels like we're moving ahead so well? I think you have 8 representatives in front of you as to why we're doing that. And they're representing their peers as well. There are more folks in the buildings who are learning as well. So we're getting there. But you must have questions now. So it's your turn.
No questions, but the vocabulary has changed. Engagement, achievement, collaboration.
Proficiency.
Proficiency. It's amazing how the vocabulary has changed since a year. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Don?
Yeah, I just had a quick, maybe for a couple of you, probably not everybody, but I almost think like we should have had a third question about how it's affected, and Ms. Bissell alluded to it a little bit, how your teaching and your planning is going. So I don't know if maybe a couple of you want to just kind of handle that, if it's more intense, if it's just kind of a learning curve as you're figuring it out, or?
That's a great question, and I think for me and for us, it does involve a lot more collaboration, which I think we've all mentioned, and that's difficult sometimes. It takes time. Unpacking standards is something that we need to sort of work harder on and get better at, and so that the children really know what the targets are and what the standards are and where we're getting our targets. So there's a lot of work that goes into this, but again, I think when we start to see benefits from the children, it's well spent.
I think that with the number of students in our classrooms and the number of subjects elementary teachers in particular have to teach, it is a challenge because that's a lot of standards for every kid, for every subject. So one of the things I see in the future is hopefully coming up with some alternative ways to structure our day, or to maybe departmentalize to try to fit the needs of students better, and to really play on teachers' strengths. I also find a challenge being for when you're reteaching for the students who don't get it the first time or even the second time, finding resources, and that's really where the collaboration comes in, finding resources or alternative ways of teaching it, showing them a different strategy so they can pick up on that standard. So those are two of the more difficult aspects of it. I guess that's all. Anyone else?
Just a quick point. Sometimes the students drive the planning. There is an immense amount of front-loaded planning that has to go in. But a lot more this year, I've been saying to the kids, what do you need? This is what I was thinking about doing with you in math. Does somebody need something else? And so some days I'm being told, oh, I need pan balance equations. I need long division. I need this, that, or the other thing. So it's the planning becomes front-loaded so that once the front-loaded planning occurs, you can execute this in a way that it's intended to be. The in-class planning looks very, very, very different than it used to. You know, so for that student who might need long division, maybe I'm doing a 10-minute blurb on long division at the board and asking anyone else who wants to come in. There's a lot of student-driven planning going on where they're identifying, I'm working on this, I don't know how to do that, so can you help me?
I would just like to say that in order to do this well, the task ahead of us is monumental, and we know that. We know that. Standards or student-centered, proficiency-based means that teachers have a lot of work to do in order to deliver or create a curriculum that does what we want it to do. And so there aren't enough hours in a day right now for all of us that are doing this. You know, sometimes there's 12 hours a day you're working, you're trying to find resources, you know, you're trying to customize learning for 85 kids. It's quite a task. But I am very impressed at the number of teachers, I can only speak for the junior high, that are up for this task. And they're just looking for support, you know, all around, because we're ready to do it. But in order for it to be done well, we need some time in the planning.
Kendra?
As you were all talking, I kept thinking about the parents. As Marguerite mentioned, there's a lot of new terminology. I'm fortunate to be able to read things and see what all the acronyms mean. But how are the parents responding to this? You just had teacher conferences. I just wonder if they're engaging or if there are some of them that are feeling just lost and not having any understanding at all. And how do you go about connecting the children to their parents and helping the children articulate to their parents what they're doing?
Becky Brink does like an assembly when the sixth graders are coming over to join the junior high school. And this past year, we had a panel similar to this of the teachers in the junior high that were doing this. And we addressed all kinds of questions. We explained, reiterated some vocabulary, some concepts they would hear over and over. And the kids really grasp these concepts quickly. So they're using the language as well. And we could see that in some of the student-led conferences that they're teaching their parents. There's many more that have to become comfortable with this model as well. But it's a process, I think.
I ran the conferences differently in my classroom this year. I had the parents actually did not sit down. They walked into the classroom, and I simply walked them around my room. And the reason I did that is so that I could show them what our shared vision was, I could show them what a code of cooperation was, I could show them what our SOPs were that were all around the buildings, which are the standard operating procedures. I showed them our parking lot. I showed them the poster where we had every target for, kneecap target for math on the board, and how in which those targets were sort of assessed and where the kids were as far as how far they've come within those targets. I showed them our spelling chart, the same idea, where certain kids have reached certain expectations in spelling, certain kids haven't yet. So I just simply walked them around the classroom to explain, what their child is doing each day. And I've got amazed, they walked out of the classroom saying that was, the best conference they had had. So I think walking away, knowing that from that they learned much more about what their student is doing in class each day and really where they are, because it's transparent. It's right there. They know it, and they are much better, the students are much better able to tell their parents, what'd you do in school? Nothing. Well, now they can say something. Now they can say, well, I reached a certain target. Today we worked on a certain subject. So I think it was effective.
I had my students talk to the parents. They were walking around the room showing them the targets, explaining that to them. And I had 3 parents on the night of conferences say, I'm so happy that my child's excited about math this year and so happy that they're doing well. So the student, absolutely, they are familiar with it and can explain it, and they're excited about it. So.
Got it. The parents that I talked to they listened to my explanations, they understood the terminology. Like many of them, my other colleagues said that the students are using terminology at home, so they already know it, and they're kind of expecting it. So, it's just like any new language or new topic, there's new terminology to work through.
Very good.
Thank you all very, very much for coming on your free time and sharing this with us. It's not, we haven't had a lot of tangible time figuring out what's been going on. We hear a lot from Jan, and Jan will get up and sputter off a lot of information to us. But the real, you guys,
my job.
Do you guys hear that too? I applaud you for being proactive in where we're going with this, and being flexible to. Because I know that in the past there have been some ideas that have come up that we haven't had this great of a response in terms of changing the way we do things. So I thank you for your flexibility and your dedication. And all we can ask at this point is that we, continue to work together, and ultimately we're not doing it for ourselves. I mean, we're doing it for the kids, and if we're engaging them at third grade, my hope is that when they get to the junior high school and when they get to the high school or even beyond that, those healthy habits continue forward. So this is a very good thing.
Mark, could I ask one more question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. When you go to Odyssey of the Mind, there's this portion that's called spontaneous, where you don't know the question ahead of time and you just have to make it up on the spot. And so I know you're not prepared for this, but think for just a second and just give us in a word or two, what is the best support that we can give to you to help you make this happen?
We need time and training. Teachers want to learn. Where's the time for that? They're anxious to learn. Give them the time, and they'll just fly with it.
I say resources, all around, that goes that ties into the standards to make it a little bit easier for them to the standards to the teachers. There, it's extremely overwhelming, and they have to unpack each one of the standards and break them down, and then break them down with the children. So there's other districts that are working on it, so that if we could find ways and resources that they're using. Like IXL, I know that their Ames Web, there's different things that can help the process.
I would absolutely reiterate the need for the targets to be unpacked in a way that are accessible to students in all content areas, but I would also add freedom and a reassurance that it's okay to occasionally fall flat on our faces, because this is hard and we're gonna fall flat on our faces. And if you're doing something hard, it's just like asking a student who struggles in a subject, do this, and if you get it wrong, blah, 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 blah. Same idea here. We're all doing something that's really hard. We need the freedom to fall flat on our faces and not feel like, oh God, who was watching me just now?
We need collaboration time. That will lead to some scheduling changes in the way in which we schedule everything. We need technology that will allow us to keep track of where students are. We need continued support, just what Adam said, we need continued support to fail. And we also need a better report card.
And I would like to go visit another school district that's successfully doing, we're just in the primitive beginning stages, so I'd like to go see some schools that are doing it and doing it well.
Time. If you don't have the right time, you're doing at best a mediocre job, and we don't want to do a mediocre job. We need time to work with other teachers teaching these subjects. We need time to work with the team so we can come up with units that are integrated, concept-based, so that kids will be able to work in any of the classrooms on this particular project. They can get support from whatever the subject teacher is. And the integrated units are the most powerful and most real life. So time, that's the big one.
I'd like to see more flexible grouping at our school as far as sharing students amongst teachers.
Community involvement, because I think that if they need learning experiences that are outside of the classroom, so that the experiences can come back into the classroom, so it'd be nice to have businesses involved.
All right, last one, I promise. In our little school, scheduling is a huge problem, so if we could find a creative way around that, and the bigger schools too.
Yeah, time, but also support from school committee, from our administrators, from other teachers, and just making sure we're collaborating and helping each other. So if we do fall flat on our face, we have somebody to say, well, this is what you could try, try this.
From our vantage point, and I hope that the other members are in agreement, I'm not saying encouraging you to fail, but understand that in some ways, you're being challenged the same way that your students are being challenged, and they're going to fail, and you're responsible for finding ways to rework the structure to help them succeed. So I find failure to be an educational opportunity for you all, and not everything that you've been taught. It may work, it may not work. If you fail, my hope is that you have enough tools to be able to find a better solution so that you can revamp what you've tried and try again. The wheel wasn't invented on the first try. So I don't want us to be a cookie cutter version of anybody's program or anybody's model. I want this to be Sanford's model. And we have needs that are different than California's needs. So I don't want to say fail away, but be bold enough, though, to experiment and find things that work better for us.
All done? All set?
I'm a bit bowled over. Sounds like virtually everybody's inside the tent now. And I expected to hear words like disruption and so forth and so on, uncooperative, and I didn't hear any of that tonight. And it's being somewhat a cynic. I'm just wondering, as I told my daughter once, we'll accept less than great news at this house if, in fact, you don't succeed every day. But it seems like we're doing this very successfully. I thought your observation, Ms. Perry, was interesting when you said, it took just the same time to do it right as it took to do it wrong, which I think is a great earthy kind of outlook. That's all I have to say. I mean, it's almost incredible to me to listen to you people talk. So I wish all parents thought the same way. Well, they certainly should after hearing this.
Okay.
Thank you all very, very, very much.